Hi, I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery in Indianapolis, Indiana.
And I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, located in Southgate, Kentucky.
And welcome to Wheel Talk.
Hey guys, we've loved answering all of your questions so far. If you'd like to hear your question on the podcast, please send them to us on Instagram at wheeltalkpodcast or by email to wheeltalkpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks.
Oh. Dun, 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 dun.
Started.
Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Becca.
Hi.
It's Monday.
It's Monday. Monday fun day. Not really, though, because it's Monday.
That's not the right thing. Sunday fun day. Case of the Mondays.
Case of the Mondays. You know what's so fucking dumb is that I start work on Sunday, but Mondays still feel like Mondays to me. Which makes...
The thing is, there's probably nobody else in there on Sunday, right?
Right, so it's pretty enjoyable. Not that I don't love my coworkers, I absolutely do. But, it's nice. It's always nice to have a studio all to yourself.
Yeah, I bet.
I mean, actually,
I have it
or
every
with
time
like,
I'm in my studio, so
yeah, or with like Abby. Abby kind of goes and she's there on Sundays too, and we have fun. Like yesterday, we watched Cinderella, the Brandy one and the regular one. Yeah, that was fun.
I wonder what that one movie you were watching. Okay, so that was the
Brandy's
Cinderella. I saw was it Whoopi Goldberg in that?
Yeah, she's the shit.
I've never seen that.
And
I did watch
Whitney
Sister Act 2
Houston's
this
in it
weekend,
too.
though.
Whitney Houston's in it too, and she's the fairy godmother. It's like, I love that. I love the Brandy version of Cinderella. Impossible. And yeah,
When was that made? In the 90s at some point?
I think it was made in 2000s.
Really? Okay.
I'm gonna look it up. Brandy Cinderella. Let's see. It was made in... Oh, you were correct. 1997. It's Rogers and Hammerstein. Steins. God.
What is that? Robert and Hammerstein's Cinderella is what it's called?
Rogers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. Yeah.
Okay.
It's so great because it's like...
Are you on IMDb?
Yes.
What did it get rating-wise? I'm going to guess 6.3.
Wow, you're so close. A 6.7.
Ooh, okay.
It's super colorful. It's like the set is so cool and the costumes are really cool, I think. And like the cast is great and she's like an independent woman and human and yeah, it's great.
I'm sure it's got some comedy and stuff in there.
A little bit. Anyway, moving on. How was your day?
I was on the news this morning.
What?
Did you watch that?
About it? No, I didn't.
Oh,
I've been
okay.
working.
So I was on. What's that? So I was on WCPO Cincy Lifestyle, which is a news segment that they do about just different things going on in the area. That was specifically for the Spring Pottery Fair, which is coming up on Saturday.
Yay!
So we just reached out to them like a few weeks ago, and we figure out advertising ways to get the word out about the show. And that was usually the news station stuff is free. You just got to schedule it in advance and hope they follow up, and you got to send them a press release with all the stuff. So we had a few people provide all that, and then they're like, okay, we've got a spot on this day at this time. Who can do it? It's virtual, and it's going to be like 3 minutes. So I've done it in the past once before. It was actually in studio in the past, and that was more stressful. That's more like you get your heart racing because you like see all the lights and you see the stage and like all the stuff going on, and you've got to like there's more pressure because the camera's on you and stuff while it's live. But I mean, it was still live, but it was virtual, so I was just in my house doing it. So it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. I hope that your show goes really, really well. Last year you did pretty good, right? I think it's going to
be great. Well, I didn't do the Spring Pottery Fair last year,
okay,
but I've got high hopes for it. I think I'll do well. The last time I did it, last time I sold there was in 2019, and I want to say I sold about $1,800
I
there.
feel like I remember that day, and you were freaking ecstatic. You were like, I
Yeah, I
sold
think that was my best single
$1,800.
day show.
Yeah, it was. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it was freaking sweet.
As
So I
you
hope I
should
sell a lot.
I hope you sell a lot too.
I had my first show this weekend at the farmer's market.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that thing wore me out so bad by the end of it. I got home and I was like, ugh. I just sat around. I like went upstairs, watched a movie, laid in bed for like 2 hours afterwards.
You're like,
like
I
got
haven't
dinner
had
and then
this
got down
much
to the studio.
interaction with people in a while.
I don't know why. Like normally the farmers markets are like kind of exhausting a little bit because I get up so early because it starts at 9.
Yeah.
But the setup's easier, so I mean I get up at like 7. I never get up at 7
Right.
unless it's for a show. And but yeah, I sold better than I expected, and like it was good. It was still a little rainy, but it was good people out there. I sold some quite a bit of stuff, and the prices were higher because I started raising my prices, so that was my first show with the higher prices. We'll see how that goes this weekend as well.
Did anybody huff and puff about it?
No, the part that I was kind of confused about was the planters. I wasn't sure what to price the newer like medium-sized planters because I've got the planters with the saucers, and I had to price the saucers like relative to what I would price a spoon rest because it's kind of like a spoon rest but it's bigger. And I'm like, the saucer by itself is like $18. Does that seem reasonable when the planter itself is like 28? So
Does
like,
anything seem
gonna add up.
reasonable ever?
I don't know. So I'm just like, I'm just gonna go with it. We'll see what happens.
And
I sold a small planter with a saucer, and I sold a bigger planter with the saucer. I didn't sell any of the ones that already had the succulents in them that I planted, but I'll take those this weekend. We'll see if they sell.
well, you know what the great thing about a saucer is that if your plant dies, you can use the saucer as a plate. So,
Yep.
that's really the best thing about saucers.
And
is that they are
honestly, I would prefer
multifunctional.
not to make them. Like if the planter sells without the saucer, I'm all for it. I'd
Yeah.
much rather just make the planters without them.
Yeah. I remember when I was making these 12-inch saucers for Urban Sprouts, and I'm like, how do I make this saucer so that it's like affordable? And I made this, and this saucer's like, it took so much time. I could only fire 6 of them at once. I had to use the baby kiln, and it was such a pain in the butt. My breaking rate was so high, it was terrible, and I sold them for way too little. And
Yeah, and if you sold that same size for a plate, you would probably market higher price.
I would sell it for
But because it's a
$75
saucer.
at least, and that's me selling it for $75 at least. And I don't even want to tell you
And
how
you
much
sell
I
it
was
as a
selling.
saucer, you feel like it inherently has to be less.
Yeah, I don't
because
really.
it's an additional, like, add-on
Yeah.
kind of thing to a planter.
Do you want to guess how much I sold it for wholesale?
Just the saucer, or the planter with the saucer?
No, just the saucer, the 12-inch saucer. 12-inch interior, by the way. The interior was 12-inch, so a 12-inch planter could fit in it.
Oh God, you probably sold it for like $18.
Yeah, I sold it for $15, and that was like,
Oh
I
my
told her,
God.
I told her the price. This is, this is why you always make a test before you say the price. I told her the price before I made the test. And immediately when I made the first one, I was like, fuck. And knowing Jen
Because it takes so
now-
much clay, right, to get out the
Yeah.
12 inches?
Oh my God. And it was like a slab process. It was easy. They were easy, but it was just like a pain in the ass. And knowing Jen now, like that I know her now, I should have been like, you know what, Jen, I wildly underpriced these. Like these need to be at least double. But I didn't, and I should have. But at the end of the day, I basically was like, I can't do it. I'm not doing the 12-inch saucers. So that's how that happened. But anyway, there you go.
How was your day and weekend? Did we talk about your day and weekend?
Well, we
I
kind
don't
of did.
remember.
I will briefly say that I'm not feeling great this week or this week, but other than that, I'm doing fine, and just throwing away at my job, and it's sunny, which is nice, and oh, there is one thing. Um, I finally bisqued the pieces that I made that are like really nice, the ones with the nice bases for my new line, and I sanded them, and I got a gift and grip from Josh's friend for too much money, and I sanded them. Um, it's okay though. I don't blame her. I would probably sell it for $150 too. Um, I hate gift and grips. They're so expensive. Anyway, moving on. Um, anyway, I got a gift and grip, and so then I sanded all these pieces, and they're so fucking smooth. I sanded them in bisque stage, which I've never done, and I got a bisque piece shiny. And I feel like
Nice.
that's an accomplishment that not very many people have made. And
And when you're bisquing these, are you bisque? Because before you were saying you were going up to cone 5. Did you go up to cone 5 or did you go to a bisque temp?
no, we're trying it. We're trying a different method. So,
Okay.
because these have two parts to the pieces, like there's the base, the wall is where the painting is, and then the bottom. I'm thinking that I can get away with a little bit of texture on the wall, and then make the bottom and the base really smooth, and have that be like the focal point to like the touching part.
So you're saying there's like a transitional point
Right.
because you've got like a straight wall and then it's got like
A rounded
something that
yeah, like a
juts
rounded
bottom.
base. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so
That makes it a lot easier to sand too because I was like gift and grip, so you're like choking in on the bottom and then you're gift and gripping and like sanding the side, so you're
Yeah.
not necessarily sanding the side.
I am sanding the side. I sanded the whole fucking thing. But I won't sand the side again like a ton. So what I was doing
Oh,
before
okay.
was I was burnishing them in greenware stage. I was bisquing them. I wasn't sanding them in bisquing stage, and then I was firing them full after I put the liner glaze in, and then I was sanding them down to super fucking smooth, and then I was glazing them on vitrified clay, and then I was firing them again. And now I'm glazing them on bisqueware, which is really nice because things actually dry. And then yeah, so we'll see. They come out of the kiln tomorrow, so I'm excited to see how that
Sweet.
goes. And then
They come out finished tomorrow.
they come out almost finished tomorrow, and then I'll sand the bases again so that they're super smooth and shiny. And then they'll be finished.
Nice.
Yeah. I was going to do a third firing at a bisque stage and fire the dots. So this is kind of a test to see how the dots do. The stroke and coat dots, to see if they stay put and don't run. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sweet.
Fun, fun, fun. Okay.
Coming along. Well, your kiln's supposed to be there soon, right?
Who knows? Poor Canada. Canada's in a rough spot right now. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so who knows when it'll be here, but it was supposed to be here this week. It is not. Not that we know. So, yeah. Okay. We are going to do a listener question. And then we're going to do our new segment that Ryan came up with. And then we will talk about our talk. Okay, so, listener question. From Amy Robin Pottery. What are the must-haves when looking for a used kiln that will fire to cone 6? So, like, the scenario is somebody is selling a used kiln on Craigslist. What is, like, the top 3 things that you're looking for, Ryan?
I want to make sure from the kilns that I've had before, I want the kiln brick to be pretty much impeccable. I don't want a bunch of big chunks out of it because it's going to cause the elements to sag and it just doesn't look as good and doesn't, it needs more maintenance down the road. Along with the bricks, like, I don't want a bunch of glaze on the bricks that's like melting into the brick and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I could be looking at the element quality, like, are they tightly compact and like leaning over to the side? If they're tight and leaning, that probably means they're getting close to their end of their life. If they look like really crusty and I'd say the sagginess of it kind of tells me that it's getting close.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two main things. I don't think. I mean, I could look at like the kiln lid a little bit, maybe, or how cracked that is. But I wouldn't say the shelving and the kiln posts and furniture, like, that's not as high on my list. That would probably be down to like 4 and 5 on my list.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's most of it. I mean, at this point, I'm only going to get something with a controller, electronic controller. So
no, at this point, you're only going to get a new fucking kiln because you need to spend some money. I will now be the
Wait,
be the purchaser for Artie's
did she say?
I know, but that was just non-related. Okay,
yes, the next kiln I will get will be new.
My must-haves are, my must-haves needs to be cone 10. That's a number one.
I knew that was going to be your number one.
What?
I knew that was going to be your number one.
Yeah, it needs to be a cone 10 kiln. I am never, ever, ever buying a cone 8 or a cone 6 kiln again.
And why not?
Because they wear out too quickly and they just cause problems. They're just like, it's like just over time, they're like, oh, I hate you. And they're fine. They're fine kilns and they're great for bisque. But a used cone 8 kiln or a cone, especially a cone 6, you just, after a while, it's like, nah, fuck you. Even if you have brand new elements, sometimes they're just like, nah. So that's the number one thing. It's got to be cone 10. Number 2 is the brick condition. Not as much the element condition, because I buy a kiln knowing that I'm probably going to be replacing those elements pretty soon. Number 3, does it turn on and does it get to temp?
Ooh.
That's...
How do you test that? Do you have them fire it? Like,
yes.
Do you go on word of mouth?
I have tested it in somebody's garage before. But, yeah, that's a tough one. That's a super tough one. I have bought kilns blind before, but from people that I knew and trusted. But
it's part of the price you're paying.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't assume, but...
Yeah, I'm not sure that I would ever buy a kiln anymore without being able to test it in some way. Yeah. Yeah. That's probably my tops. And, like, do a paper test or, like, turn it on high, close the lid, and 15 minutes later see if it gets right all the way down. So
that's a good idea.
That was a very good thing that somebody told me. Oh. Okay, anyway, that was a good thing.
Because I feel like a lot of kilns that you get will have a plug, and they're like, well, I've never plugged it in, or I
right.
moved, and then I never got a new plug, so, like, you can't test anything.
Yeah, sometimes. And, like, if they're like, oh, it worked, and if I look inside and the bricks say, like, hey, this is a pretty brand new kiln, then I'm usually going to be okay with it. But, yeah. And as far as kiln furniture goes, I don't even want kiln furniture because I feel like people abuse their shelves, like, tenfold, and I am, like, super fucking picky about my shelves. So I would much rather just buy brand new shelves.
Really?
Yes.
You wouldn't take them with you? Or you would ask for a discount because you don't want to take them?
I would take them, but that's not going to be, like, something that I'm looking for at all. Like, the small kiln that I had the kiln shelves, and they just gave me issues, like, all the way up, and just, like, flaking off kiln wash. Like, nobody knows how to apply kiln wash anymore. And so it, like, it just flakes off all
That's true. Some of them, they can cake up like crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, the only way to get them flat is to angle grind some bitch and flatten it out so it's perfect. And then you can put a clean...
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, we should do a tutorial on how to apply kiln wash because I feel like... I'm like, I do the thinnest layer of kiln wash, like, and I do one layer of kiln wash, and then but I also don't have glazes that drip. We'll give I will say that as well. I'm not a fan of super duper drippy glazes, but
So yours is just in case shit happens. It's
right.
not.
I'm much more a fan of like just sprinkling alumina on the shelf every time I put it in the kiln than the other way. So I do a thin wash of thin layer of kiln wash, super thin, and then I sprinkle alumina on it. Okay, I do have something to say that's kind of sad. Well, it is sad about my week. The guy that taught me pottery, Larry Bruning, actually passed away this week. So that was really sad. Yeah. He was like 75, 76, something like that. He had an aneurysm a couple years back, so he wasn't in great health anyway, but yeah, super sad. Like, kind of crazy. Like, he taught me, like, I obviously learned clay in college, but he taught me, like, production.
Yeah, but you talked about him a number of times here.
Yeah, he taught me production, so super sad. But yeah.
How'd you find out about it? Are there people in your town? Because it's a small town, right? So
it's smallish. They put it on Facebook. He passed away on Monday. Okay. So, yeah. Last Monday, so a week ago. But, yeah, I just found out like 2 days ago. Anyway, that also happened, so I felt like I should say that. Anyway, okay. What next? Moving on. We will only say good things about, obviously, I do pottery because of this man, so he did good things.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Moving on to our new segment. Before we do our new segment,
yes,
we haven't even released the episode yet about the reviews, but if you send us a review, we will send you a sticker. Yes. So we talked about in the last episode, I think we said the whole write a review after this date. Send us your address, and we'll send you a sticker with a screenshot of your review. And
we should probably do a cutoff date. Let's do a cutoff date because people are going to be listening to this in the future. And I don't want to be sending stickers to people in 2023. So I'm just saying by this lasts for the whole month of May 2021. Okay? Like, until May 31st, 2021, we will send you a sticker.
Okay, and that first episode is going to go live on May 1st, so...
That's perfect. A month. You have a month for this deal.
You'll basically have 4 episodes probably throughout the month that you'll hear, or you'll have the opportunity, so... We'll see if we can remember to remind you throughout to get that going, so... All right, that was my only thing before. And then we're going to do, what would you do if you spill a 5-gallon bucket of glaze on the floor?
Oh, God. God. Oh. How about what did you do when?
I've never spilled a 5-gallon bucket of glaze, but I have had a shelf fall in the middle of the night, and... glaze was included in that. All right, so let's start with you because you started with me last time and it was a shit show. So.
What would I do if a 5-gallon bucket of glaze spilled on the floor? First of all, expletives, lots
of expletives.
Lots of expletives. Second, I would probably find some sort of a squeegee type substance, cardboard, whatever, and get as much of it back into the bucket as possible. Not to reuse. I might actually reuse it. That's a lie. Depending on how clean the floor is and where it was done, I might reuse it if I spilled the entire 5-gallon bucket. I have spilled a lot of glaze on the floor, and it is a pain. And also, it was an iron glaze, which is worse.
Oh God, it looks like a murder scene.
It does look like a murder scene. It's fucking terrible. And then, a lot of people would clean it. You'd obviously want to clean up as much of it wet as you can, but damn, it just spreads everywhere. Like, obviously you're going to get the mop bucket and mop as much as you can up. But, ugh. I might get frustrated, walk away, go drink a beer, and then come back when it's dry.
See, what I did when my glaze fell off the shelf, I think I just cleaned up the glass stuff that broke, but I think I waited until it was dry, actually. Respirator, and I think I scraped it up with something.
Yeah.
And disposed of it, because
I might be tempted to do that.
When it's wet, it's just so hard. Like imagine how much sponging you're doing, and then you have a side bucket with water, right?
Yeah.
And you're like wringing out the sponge. Like, it's better to just let it sit.
Yeah, or at least let it get
up.
like jelly, you know, so you could scoop it up in gloops or something, you know.
Yeah.
But if you had to work in that
if
space
you have a
right
drain,
away,
I mean, if you have a drain or something, obviously stop it from going down the drain, like a floor drain in your room. Like, make sure you don't just have gallons of glaze going down this floor drain that's going into the sewer or whatever.
Sorry. What was that Disney show like back in the day where the girl becomes like the other person and she goes down the drain in the garage? That's what that reminds me of. Oh, was it like Alex and something? I don't remember.
Is that a movie?
Yeah, it was like a movie. She turned into like Flubber or something. Anyway, that was like a Disney 90s Disney moment.
I don't recognize that movie, but
anyway, yeah, I don't know. That's a tough, like, it's not really tough. Like, in the moment, you're going to try and clean up as much of it as possible and be very mad at yourself.
I think the color of the glaze would depend, though. Like, if it's red, I mean, I don't know. Because, I mean, like, some of that stuff, if you have a red, right, you're cleaning up, you're sponging it up. I imagine I have a bucket there that's probably my reclaim bucket. Or, I mean, I would be tempted to clean up what I could and, like, throw it in my slop bucket that is my, like, what I clean my tools off in when I glaze, so that it becomes a mystery glaze.
Oh, I would definitely put it in that. I'd definitely put it in that. Because you're going to sieve it off anyway. Is it sieve or sieve?
I don't know. I say sieve.
Okay, I'm sure I'm wrong. So sieve it is.
I'm not sure. So.
Did I tell you the story about when Tidbit fell in the glaze?
Yes.
Was that on
you showed
here?
Me pictures of that. We talked on the podcast about it. It was a really old episode, but we did.
Okay. For those of you who don't know, one time Tidbit fell in my white glaze, and she's a black cat. And she fell in my white glaze and got inside, and there was white paw prints all over my kitchen, all over my green couch. And she was just like cowering in the corner. And it was the cutest, most saddest thing in the whole world. And she didn't even fight when I like washed her off. She was like, I'm here for this.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So I'd probably wait until it dries, personally.
I mean, I feel like that's acceptable. If I couldn't wait,
but hey, you can get a cool mystery glaze out of it. If your floor's not that dirty, like, you can throw that in your mystery bucket, like, mix it up.
If my floor wasn't that dirty, I'd put it right back in the same bucket, sieve it out, and call it good.
Yeah, I'd be tempted to do that too if it was clean enough.
For sure.
Like, if that thing was on, like, linoleum or something.
Yeah,
and
fuck
that thing
that.
cleaned easily.
Oh my god, that's another reason. Honestly, that's another reason why, if you can, like, get some sort of a flooring, especially, like, in, like a heavy-duty tarp or something like that. That if you could get, like, some sort of a flooring that just snaps on or covers your floor. I've actually, like, that would be helpful. Because if you did spill something like that, then you could just kind of, like, take that up and clean it off. Like, with a hose outside or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm a huge proponent of, like, whenever I put a wheel in place, I always cover the walls with shower curtains, so I never have to clean up the wall. And if the floor is not cement or wood or whatever, like, I always put something down. Like when we put my wheel in the back, the floor wasn't like wipeable, so I put like vinyl tiles, like those 2x2 vinyl tiles, and I just taped them down. And taking out that in the studio was so nice. All I'd have to do was just toss them in the trash. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my floor is concrete, so
Yeah.
it's we're not like coating it with anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. 30 minutes in. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? Down, 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 down. Down.
All right, so we're talking about. We had a question that spurred this. The question that we initially got was, I'd love to hear you guys talk about the ins and outs of opening and running a brick and mortar. It's been talked about, I think, in various ways, and I'd really love to hear your perspectives on how to make it happen. COVID-19 aside, of course.
Yeah,
the pottery mason.
We're going to talk COVID-19, like COVID-19 doesn't exist today. In a way, I guess.
Yeah. So a lot of this is going to be me asking Becca questions about basically how we're like brick and mortar, because she's had experience with brick and mortar. I have not.
Well, you can attest to this, because I mean, like, Rachel works for Codeco, and you kind of see how that goes. So
she actually stopped working there because it was too busy, but you know what I mean.
Oh yeah. But she, she worked there. And you guys are friends, and you guys talk to each other on a semi-regular basis. Yeah. Okay, so let's start. How are we going to start?
What about opening? So the first kind of things that I was talking about when opening is, like, if you're seeking out a brick and mortar,
yes,
how important is the location?
Location is absolutely everything. In my
well, first you have to understand what you're using the brick and mortar for.
Yes.
Like walk-ins versus
right. So you have to
studio or
you have to decide what. Okay. You have to decide what you're going to be using your brick and mortar for, but also a weirdly good resource that I found when I was actually opening my store was I looked up how to start a paint your own pottery business, and this lady did an entire blog post on how to start a paint your own pottery business, and it was so informative. And let's see if it is. I think it's like the first link. But anyway, so Google things and kind of like look into your demographics in your city, in your state, decide where you want to be. I would recommend if it's a class-based system, you're going to want parking, and you need to like be aware of that type of stuff,
like the neighborhood might be important for people that might be there after dark or coming in late at night.
Yeah, I guess.
You mean you guess?
I don't really care.
You don't think that's a factor of whether somebody wants to be a member there or not? If the neighborhood's terrible?
I mean, our neighborhood was terrible and people still came. I think it's more important about parking. Because if you're like on a super busy street and there's no parking around and you want to have at least 20 people in your studio at one given time, you need to be able to have them park somewhere. And whether that be there's parking in the neighborhood behind First Street or, that's fine too, but there just has to be some sort of parking available. So that's a lot of the reason why, like, I had a little bit of an issue because Monroe has kind of a parking issue, even though there is parking, but, yeah.
Is it like off Main Street parking?
No, yes, but also, like, it's the people that haven't been to Monroe in 6 years when there wasn't any parking, and they're like, there's no parking in Monroe. And there will never be parking in Monroe for those people, and that's fine. It would be similar to parking by Codeco. So that's big, like your surrounding. You should be looking at how many people are in your city, what the city looks like for development, like how many people are coming into the city, Is it a commuter city? Is it a city or a town where people stay? Um, and
Would it be a podcast if we didn't have a train going by? Or
no,
I don't think we have
not.
an episode without a train.
Yeah, no, definitely not. um, this is a part of us, Ryan. This is in our blood.
It is. It's our third co-host.
Our third co-host, the train. Yeah, so that's big. Yeah, so like, and you know what? A lot of people say that you shouldn't be opening a store in a city that's less than 70,000 people. I don't believe that's true, but the demographics of that city or town really need to be taken into consideration. If it's less than 70,000 people, maybe you're not going to get by just on retail. You're going to have to start doing classes or something like that. And, you know, but also if you are the only location within the surrounding cities, that's a good sign too. Like, you know, when I was in Monroe, I was one of the only paint your own pottery stores within 7 cities, you know, like all the surrounding cities didn't have anything, so they would come to me from, you know, they'd be like, oh my god, I didn't realize Monroe had this is so much nicer than going down to Bellevue. And so yeah, so keep that in mind. Look at your quote unquote competition around
Yeah, I
you.
feel like in Cincinnati they would have to pick very selectively where they put it because there are like 5 options here.
Oh, absolutely. And like, yeah, and you want
Or
to be a
more.
little bit different too, you know, like if you don't want to do classes and you want to just do retail, you know, find an artsy-ish or area, you know, that has traffic, that people that will want pottery are going to be traveling down naturally anyway. So, yeah, that's big. What else?
Yeah, one of my follow-ups was your hours. So how often do you need to be open when you're like a retail? Like, is it common to be open during the day for retail, or is it like a weekend only? Do you start weekend only? Based on
that's a good
the
question.
location is probably going to determine that too.
What are the hours of Codeco?
They're open Tuesday through Saturday.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, they're closed Sunday. So Tuesday through Saturday, and I believe it's 12 to 5.
Okay, that's...
And then on Friday, I think they're open till 7 on Fridays.
Yeah, it definitely depends on your
It might
town,
change
right?
depending on the time of year, but...
Yeah, and it depends on the town. Like, in Monroe, being open after 5 o'clock was not ever gonna get you anything.
Because it's like, do you cater to people that work 9 to 5s? Like...
At the end of the day, it's like, it depends on this town. Like, if there's a lot of people out at night, then yes. But, like, you know, you have to kind of survey the town and see what's going on there. But, yeah, what the biggest thing I would say is to be open a consecutive amount of days. So, don't, if you want 2 days off, you're going to have to make those together. Because being closed on a Wednesday and then being closed on a Sunday confuses the shit out of people. So,
Yeah.
so it's and it's so much easier to just be like, we're open Thursday through Sunday. You know, like when I was towards the end, I was open only Thursday through Sunday. It worked out great for me, and having 3 days off was fantastic. Because that's when the most of my sales were anyway. But yeah, that's my biggest thing, is to have consecutive days open. You know, obviously we are all consumers, and so kind of look at the stores that you like and see what they do that you don't like or that you do like, and make your, you know, and you can kind of like look at it towards that. But yeah, I think that 12 to 5 is great. Very few, like, unless you're doing paint your own pottery, very few people are going to come in before like noon. But like,
Who's the demographic for the paint your own pottery
kids.
mainly?
Like, there's a lot
kids.
of little kids that
Like
come
young
in. Yeah.
families with kids.
Yeah. And so that's that, right? And then, but like, yeah, if you had a retail space, there's no point in being open before noon. Nobody's up before noon. Nobody that buys art is up before noon. I feel like.
Or they'll, at the earliest, they might go on their lunch hour and go
Right.
stop in when you just open.
Totally.
Because they know they can get that errand run
Taken care
during
of.
their lunch.
Yeah.
If it's like picking up pottery that's been fired or something like that, or hey, I need to get a Mother's Day gift and I need to go during my lunch on a Thursday.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, there's a ton of places also that are retail that are by appointment only, and they do great. It's really, like I said, it's really up to your demographic in your area, but yeah.
I would hate that as a shopper.
What?
If I could only go places by appointment only, like usually when I go places, it's like a day planned ahead, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be based on like, okay, am I willing to give up 15 minutes commute there, 15 minutes back, and then 10 to 15 minutes while I'm doing it? Like, can I spare an hour today at this time?
Yeah.
And I'll usually be like, what am I feeling like right now?
Yeah. I did
Like,
I
can
did
I
by
just leave for an
appointment.
hour?
I did by appointment only at the end. I feel like when I owned the shop, it was a lot of different, like there was a lot of experimentation, and I feel like I kind of treated it as an experiment up until the very end. But I did appointment only towards the end, especially with COVID, and it actually turned out okay. It was nice because I always knew when somebody was coming, you know? It was nice on my end.
You knew what to prepare for.
Yeah, and I was still open certain times, right? Like I would still be open shorter hours, like 1 to 5. And then but I would be open for appointments from like 11 to 6 or 11 to 7. That way if somebody needed that time in the morning or whatever, they could schedule that appointment and I would know to be there. But that worked out really well. The biggest thing is to not confuse your clientele. That's the biggest thing.
Like, don't be changing your hours and posting new hours every week or every 2 weeks and like, okay,
Right.
I'm not going to be here on Tuesday this week.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Consistency is definitely key when it comes to
Like
retail.
it's better to cut down the days, like you said, and figure out your schedule. Like, okay, I can do my personal errands and do X, Y, and Z, schedule my doctor appointment, like schedule it on days that you're not going to be there so it doesn't have to mess with your consistent
Right.
customer schedule.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah, totally. Now, if you are a class-based system, like a class-based retail store or brick and mortar, you do have to kind of figure out whether you want members or not, and like studio time and stuff like that. I trusted my members pretty much completely, so there was a key code in the back door, and they could come in whenever they wanted to. The biggest thing was if they were there when there was no hours for the business, they just had to close the curtains so nobody could see that they were in there. Mostly just so nobody would like knock on the door and bug them, but so that they were like not disturbed. But yeah, so you kind of have to like figure that out too. What works for like studio times and stuff. But yeah, so there's that. Also,
How do you
I
determine
saw a
whether you
question
should
before
offer-
in Instagram that was like, what? Sorry, you cut out.
I said, how do you determine whether you should offer classes or not? And that could factor in with the question you were talking about.
Oh yeah, like Mudslinging Pottery asked how you know whether to go to retail or class based, right?
Yeah, she said, what do you think is more lucrative, having a studio with retail area or offering classes?
Well, I don't see why you can't have both. But and I'll tell you why. If you have a studio with retail space in the front, there's a lot of benefits to that. And the reason being, if you're teaching classes, First of all, you should always diversify your income as much as possible anyway, but you're already going to be making pottery to sell. You might as well put something up in the front, even if it's small, just to have people see it, because then they'll be like, oh, what's this? And they can come in. But also, when you're teaching glazing, it's really great to be like, let's go to the front. Let's see all the pieces I have and look around and see what pieces you like. And then we can talk about how this was glazed. So that's another reason why it's really nice to have like a showroom. But yeah, I mean, like, you may not have a ton of sales from your showroom, especially initially, but it's not hurting you in any way to have a little showroom. And if you're doing a class-based system, that showroom could be by appointment only, and then you have classes. You know, you don't have to make that necessarily open all the time if you're a production style pottery. That's like that. You know, that's that whole issue. Like, not issue. But
is that where you like lock the front door if it's not retail hours and the members come in a different door, or they have to use the key code to get in?
Yeah.
Because you don't want customers coming in the same door as the members if the studio or gallery's not open.
Yeah. And I mean, like, but also, you know, if you have a bell on the front, which you should, by the way, if you have something that's indicating that somebody's there, then why not just have it open? If you're gonna be there, you might as well just have it open. I've definitely seen stores that were like, we're open when we're open. You guys can suck it. But if that's not your main income, then don't treat it like that.
Is it a factor at all? I was thinking about the gallery space. Is it a factor at all to have one part of your space that is clean and tidy and like presentable?
Yeah, I think it's great.
I think it's nice to be able to like, okay, I want to go work on my computer in the gallery space because there's a counter that's clean that's not in my studio.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so nice to have a space in the front that's like clean. Yeah, absolutely. Also, as far as classes versus retail go, this is what you're looking at for classes. You're looking at, it's a set time, which is nice. It's mostly profit, except for you teaching, quote unquote. There's some cost in the materials, but not very much. Not only that, but you get a lot of community. But what I would say, if you're going to have a teaching-based system, this is something that Larry told me, and I did not listen. Start small and move your way up.
What is small? Is that the number of wheels you have, or the number of students you
the number
accept?
Of students, because you will
the number
suck.
Of classes?
Yeah, unless you've taught before, you will suck at the beginning. You won't even realize how much you suck, but you will. And like, teaching is not throwing. You know this. It's like it's a whole different ballgame to teach pottery than to throw pottery.
What's the driving factor of jumping in too quickly and too much? Is it trying to accommodate people's schedules because they can't fit into your schedule? And you're like, I'm only doing this class on Wednesday night at 6:00. And they're like, well, I can't do Wednesday. Can you do Thursday? And you're like, yeah, let's try Thursday. And now you have a Wednesday and Thursday class because you have a student who wants to do it, and you try a daytime and a nighttime class. Is that like how you grow too big, or is it seeing the dollar signs and you're like, while this equipment's sitting here, I can make more money on it if I have another class?
I think it's more the money. It's like seeing it and being like, I don't know if I can manage the money, or like I can make enough money doing this. You really need to have a good business plan going into owning a retail store. Like any business, you should have a good business plan. But especially you need to know your costs and what's involved. And a lot of the reason that people don't make it is because there's a lot of money going out, but not a lot of money coming in. And it can be like really tough, but you just have to, in my mind, now after so many years of doing weird things, I would much rather have my shit together and teach a few people first and kind of like work my way up than do what I did and teach a ton of people. Like the first class session that I had, I think I had 18 students. And
holy shit.
like not like over 4 classes.
Not at once.
Yeah, like over
okay.
4 classes. I think I had like 18 students. And I did okay.
I think you meant at once. Okay.
Thankfully, a lot of them were my friends. But, you know.
Yeah.
But looking.
So what's the loss there? Is it your time and your like stress that's going to be aggravating?
Yeah, it is stressful, but the loss is that you're not creating. When you start.
You're not nurturing a small group.
Yeah, when you start and you're doing like a big thing, you're not giving the students that you have your 100%. You know, 18 students or 6 students in a class that you're not prepared for, you're not creating members. You're creating people that will take one class and then they'll leave. You want to create people that will take one class and say, when's the next class? Like, I want to be here. I want to continue doing this in the studio because I like it here and I want this to be my community. If you overwork yourself at the beginning, you're going to lose all those people. Like, I didn't have anybody from the beginning carry on until the end. You know, but once I started figuring out how to teach classes and once I started figuring out how to build a community, all of those people stayed. And all of those people were devastated when I left, you know, as was I. But, yeah. Like, that's, you know, it's really about... So, yeah, having classes can be extremely lucrative, but having a community is even way more lucrative. So having people that spend their money on you every month consistently is what you should be, I think, what you should be striving for. Like, we'll use Larry Bruning as an example. He had 70 students when I was going there. 70.
This was was this a big studio?
Yeah, it's 5,000 square feet, 8 wheels in the back. And when...
8 wheels, 70 students. That's a lot.
It's a lot of classes. I think he had about 70. And, you know, you paid a certain amount, but after 2 years, you got a discount. Like, after you were there for 2 years, you got this, like, hey, you're a member. Like, you get clay cheaper and you get your class cheaper. You get this discount, right? That's like, hey, this is our community and this is, you know, you get a little bit of a kickback for being here. Not only that, but you get the trust of the people there. But yeah, like he had been teaching for 35 years, so he kind of knew what he was doing. But like, yeah. You know, it's really important to create like a sustainable system that works, and using other people's models is a really good idea because they've done it right, you know. I feel like
does the initial cost of the equipment like factor into it? Because I feel like I would be comfortable getting, like, if I were to start and do teaching classes, like I would feel comfortable with like 4 wheels, maybe in addition to my 1 wheel,
yeah, and
then maybe a table area that you could teach like a 4-person hand building. So like start with a 4-person hand building class and a 4-person wheel class, or just start with wheel because that's what I'm most comfortable with. Like, is that reasonable to be like, okay, I'm going to teach my first class,
yeah,
maybe 1 of each, and do like 6 weeks of a class, see how it goes, see that you feel it, and like offer the next one, and if that feels equally, maybe see if you can add a third, but like, you know.
Yeah, I definitely.
That's how I would approach it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. But yes, I think to the point of this whole thing was, yes, class-based systems can be extremely lucrative. I still think you should have a showroom, though. You should have some sort of retail. Unless you are in the shittiest part of town, then don't have one at all. Just make it a class-based system. And you don't need a, like,
because it's going to be a waste of space, or...
Yeah, it'll be a waste of space, and, like, And especially if you're an ultra introvert, you don't need that kind of shit in your life. But yeah. Oh, let's talk about the equipment at the beginning. Like, I have a lot of friends that have started.
I would not want to spend the money.
Right. I have a lot of friends that have started restaurants from scratch that have gotten $50,000 loans for that, and that was on the low end. I've always approached my studios with a I will build it as it comes situation. Like, we built out the front, and I spent very little money on the front. But the back half was kind of like built as it grew. I initially got a $10,000 loan, and I built the entire studio from that $10,000, and I just paid it off when I left. But so
for the showroom, all the wheels, all the tables, all the lumber and glaze materials and kilns and everything.
Yeah, and we're talking bare bones, like bare bones. And so lots of wood used as tables, lots of, hand-me-downs. Like, I had a friend who owned a soap shop, and she gave me all of her really nice IKEA islands, and that's what we use for our hand-building tables. And so, like, scrounging up all the things that you can get. But yeah, so I used $10,000. My space was 3,000 square feet. And not a lot of people could get away with that. I already had a lot of stuff. I already had some of the kilns. I already had a couple
and the
wheels.
big shelving unit too.
Yeah, I made a lot of stuff. I made so many shelves, and those were just by 2x4s and 1x1, or 2x2s and 2x4s, and just wear boards. It was not very attractive, but what's great about having a pottery studio is that when you say, I'm sorry it's a mess, people come in and they're like, it's art, it's supposed to be messy. That's so great. I love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so really you need to have a business plan to kind of like map out the expenses that you want, and if you want it to look really nice, you're gonna have to spend a little bit more money. Nice things cost money. Making things look nice usually costs a little bit of money, if not time. Also, you have to consider how long you're going to take to set up your space. So sometimes your landlords are really nice, and they'll be like, yeah, you have 4 months or 2 months of unpaid rent, and then it starts on January, like, let's say you rent it out at January 1st, and then you don't have to pay anything January, February, and then you start paying in March. And that's ideally...
Wait, that's a thing?
That is a thing. You can negotiate those type of things, or you pay half. Yes, you can negotiate those type of things, especially if you're building out a space to make it better. So if you're building out a space to make it better, you can be like, hey, I'm going to be putting a shit ton of money into your building to make it look nice. Let's talk about...
But how are you... But, are you just doing stuff within the 4 walls that's going to improve it? Rather, that's going to just make it look good for your stuff?
Yeah,
because
but even
if you don't change, you're not changing flooring and all that shit,
A ton of people change flooring. Tons of people.
Well, I'm talking about what you did.
Not what I did, but we're not talking about what I'm doing. I'm saying that... Okay. In a lot of scenarios, you can negotiate your rent and stuff like that to start when you open up your business. I did not have that luxury because my landlord was Greek and cheap. God bless you, Terry, wherever you are. He never even fixed my awning. I had to rip it down myself, and then they put up an ugly brown awning after I left. Anyway, moving on. I had a month to get it ready and start it. So I signed the lease on November 1st, and I opened on December 1st. That is not typical. It does not use...
I mean, ideally, you should have a stockpile of money anyways that gives you confidence that you can make it through rent.
Right.
You're not getting rent with a loan in mind that I'm going to get a loan to get me through the, first few months of rent.
A lot of
You should
people
already
do
have
that,
money
Ryan.
saved,
I'm not
right?
saying it's a good idea, but a lot of people do that. His face right now is like, God.
Yeah.
A lot of people do that. But I didn't know. I thankfully had income from other places, set up, so it wasn't an issue as much for me. But yeah, so just map out your costs, figure out how much you're going to need. If you need to get a loan, get the loan. But make sure that...
What is the extent of the loan? Is that going to be your bare essentials to get it up and going? It's not getting fancy stuff. Like let's say you drop half of that money into your retail space to make it look super nice. Mm-hmm. But you just don't get the foot traffic, and you're not going to get those sales that you expect just because it looks really fucking nice. Like, is that a sunken cost that is better to work your way up?
Well, it depends on what you want, because if it does look really nice, then you might get the people that you want. But also, part of that money needs to go towards a sign. Like, there's a lot of things that are essential to a business, especially a brick and mortar, that people don't necessarily think of right off the bat. But the first thing that really you should be getting is a fucking sign. Because if you don't have a sign, then nobody knows you're there. And especially if
That's true.
if you're in a town, like if you're on a main street or something like that, you need to have a sign. And one that people can read. And also one that has like pointed words on it. Like, I never had a sign, and I feel like I was a super success for that fact. That I like never got a sign.
I was just thinking, I was like, did you have a sign?
No,
I think
had
you had
a
it on.
little
You had it
thingy in
written on the
window.
door.
I had a thing in the window that had like the name, but like our town was a drive-through town. Like Main Street was a main road that people would drive through to go to another town, essentially. And had I had a sign, I think I would have been a lot more successful. But the fact that I didn't have a sign and I was successful means that I did okay. But
how much more successful could you have with a
I
sign?
think one of my friends, this is not stated in fact, but I think one of my friends said that once you get a sign, it increases your business by almost 30%. 30%. That's not based in fact, but if it is...
it would pay itself off.
If it is, it would pay
At
yourself
some-
off. And
yeah.
also, do not think that a sign is not going to be expensive. They're fucking expensive. Like... I got a few quotes.
I can imagine it will be expensive.
I got a few quotes for a sign because 2019 was going to be my sign year. And because I had plans for a sign. 2019
I'm
was...
going to guess like $5,000.
Yeah, like $3,000 to $5,000 is like, well, if you wanted to get like a kind of a shitty one, you could probably be like 1.5 to 2. But if you
Is
want
it
a really
lit
nice
sign, or is that not lit?
That's not lit. If you want a really nice sign that's potentially lit up on, the face, you're looking at $3,000 to $5,000. And also, like, if you want to put vinyl on your awning or something like that, that's really important. I think that it's really important too to like think about your sign and yeah, if you have like a weird business name, that's all fine and dandy, but you need to have something up there like, okay, if I was going to put a sign up for 5 Lines Pottery, which doesn't say anything about me teaching classes, I would put a sign up that says 5 Lines Pottery, and then on the awning, I would put paint your own pottery classes and like retail on it. That way it's like, oh, that's a paint your own pottery, there's classes there, and they have retail. Like that would be...
Yeah.
Like, whatever I'm trying to sell the most is what I'm going to put... Like, I specifically remember driving by Bruning Pottery for the first time in 2013, and I saw Bruning Pottery, and then all I really saw was pottery classes. And I was like, oh, I should stop in there. Because that was what I wanted. And so,
right.
You need to put what people want on your sign. That's my biggest
Even
thing.
if it's just like, hey, paint your own pottery,
Yeah.
and somebody passes by, they just see it. And they're like talking with a friend or something 2 weeks down the road, and they're like talking about paint your own pottery. We went and did this years ago. There's something to do. Oh, there's a shop that I drove by.
Even if you don't have a fucking sign that says your business name, it should say something like pottery classes, paint your own pottery. Like, it has to say something. Also, don't have an awning that's ripped.
I was just thinking about this because there's a barbecue place down the street that I drive by that I hate that it doesn't have this. Do you have an open sign?
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't have it, and it just has a bunch of writing all over the windows. And it's one of those where it's barbecue, where it's like selective times that they're open because they could sell out or whatever, or they have limited days because barbecue is not cheap to make. So they're in kind of a sellout, retail, so they have to sell out or else they're not making their money because barbecue's expensive. But that's one thing that upsets me is I drive by there and I'm like, I would like some barbecue, but I would be more upset if I showed up and I expected barbecue and they're closed.
Yeah, that would be frustrating. Yeah, you should get a light up open sign, one that lights up. Like, don't just get the paper one that says we'll be back on the back with you need two. Have the paper one that says open or we'll be back in 10 minutes. And then we need also the one that lights up that potentially blinks that gets people's attention.
Yes. That's all they would need. And I would stop in there on my drive.
That's it.
I would be more upset stopping and not getting barbecue because I get excited about barbecue. So I'm like,
I know you do.
I'm getting barbecue. And then I'm like, fuck, they're not
barbecue.
Open.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Having an open sign is actually one of those things that I feel like, Also, hours on your door, like on your window or on your door with your hours, are really important as well.
Or on Google too. Like, get those things on Google.
Oh, yes. Let's talk about Google. Also, I don't know. Now when people search my business, it just says permanently closed.
Because it is.
It is permanently closed, but I don't know how to take it off of Google Maps.
Don't you own that business? I mean, don't you own the Google pin and stuff? Like, just change the address to it or something.
I don't know. I don't know. Anyway,
I mean, I have that for mine.
That's above my pay grade, so but yeah, you should definitely be signing up with Google and putting your brick and mortar on the Google and putting the hours there and putting up pictures and trying to get your friends to review the place so it looks like there's reviews.
Yeah, because people just go into Google, type pottery classes, and you want to be one of those that come up.
Exactly. Yeah, and also use keywords like if you want paint your own pottery or pottery class. Yeah.
I just looked at the barbecue place. It's open noon to 8, Thursday through Sunday.
Sure it is. We'll never know because they don't have an open sign.
Yeah, what the hell?
Yeah, that's...
I had some other questions on here. Let's see. What about... I had some consistency things. Like, how do you generate foot traffic consistently? Is it... Because, I mean, you need to get people in there. Whether it's retail or classes, how were you able to market the business that it was there and that... to get people to come back? Was it sales? Was it putting stuff on your website? How did you kind of market to get people to come back?
Well, I mean, there's a couple ways I feel like that you can do. Let's take this as a class-based system, because I would say that the majority of the people listening potentially, I think, are looking at opening up a brick and mortar that has also a class-based system with it. There are very few that have galleries, just galleries, and typically those are in tourist locations that already have the foot traffic. If you're opening up a gallery in a really small town, like Danny has a gallery in a really small town, I don't know how it does, but you know, you're kind of a destination. You have to be a destination. Like you have to be you almost have to be like famous enough for people to be like, oh, I want to go there. So let's assume that we have a class-based system, and plus with an additional gallery added onto it. I'm a huge proponent in Facebook because I feel like Facebook is locals mostly. You know, Facebook really caters to the local community, especially if you're in a small community. If you're in a larger community, it can be a little bit harder, but usually there's like there's like a downtown indie page or a Leavenworth, Washington page or something like that that you can always be advertising on consistently. One thing that I've done that has been really great is, I have friends, but keep in mind that I'm very well connected. But, you know, you can go to your local pizza place and say, like, hey, I have these coupons. Would you be able to put them on your pizza boxes? Or I can put them on your pizza boxes. Can you put them out with every pizza box that goes out? Like a local pizza place. Not Pizza Hut, but just like a local pizza place. And that puts things out in your radius, like in your community radius. With like coupons.
That's a good point.
Yeah, with like coupons and stuff. You can go to like local craft fairs, farmers markets, and advertise that you have a location. Go to your Chamber of Commerce and talk to your Chamber of Commerce.
Is that shows that you're selling at? You just, when you have it with your business card, like have your address on the business card? Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
or are you talking about like
just talk to people
as
and
a
be
shopper?
like, oh yeah, I own a store in downtown. Where do you live? Southgate. Downtown, Southgate, Kentucky. I have a store right in downtown. And, you know, talk to people there. You need to be meeting. I know it sounds stupid, but like knowing the other business owners in your community is really important to your growth. Because they'll recommend you and you can recommend them. And that's super important. Again, Facebook, free. It's free. And you can use it to your advantage. You can always have little sales and stuff. We would always do downtown events. Like all the shops would get together and we would advertise on Facebook and also in town. And like have a little charm walk with all the little boutiques in town. And all the people have to go to every single store. And they have to get their own charm. But that means people are coming into your door and they're finding out that you're there. There's all these different types of events that will kind of like show up. But using other businesses to your advantage is super helpful. You know?
So like getting familiar with when their foot traffic is around and when their popular days are so that you can like... No. Like, I'm saying if you know that people come out to this bar down the street on Friday nights, have something out front with a sandwich board, for instance, showing that people when they're walking by the bar or when they're going to dinner next door, you might be open longer that day because people are coming out for dinner on Friday night.
Right. Or that's you could team up with that restaurant and say, hey, could you pass out these coupons to your patrons with their bill? And be like, hey, there's a place next door that is open for business. It's open right now, you know? Like, I cannot stress enough that you should be making friends with the business owners that are around you. They will help you out more than anybody else. Because if you can't...
Well, because they want the neighborhood to flourish, too.
Yeah, so totally.
If you cater to a certain customer base, it doesn't... that they might not already be catering to.
Yeah.
They might not bring that customer into town, but you might be bringing them into town.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that's the way that, and I mean, I understand that Instagram is a really good, Instagram is really great with marketing and stuff like that. I've always felt like Instagram is really great with marketing externally and online, not necessarily locally. So that's why I say Facebook as opposed to Instagram. But if your Instagram base is local, then that's great. I've never experienced a local Instagram base, so I can't really say to that.
Use more local hashtags.
Yeah, you could do that for sure.
That's what I do.
Yeah. Also, especially if you're a clay class related situation, going to your local clay supplier and saying, hey, can I put up a flyer on your bulletin board saying that I have classes? You can do the good old fashioned paper with the rip offs with your phone number. That's
Yeah.
Don't be above it, I'd say. Coupons are good. I've just make sure you put an expiration date on them.
If you have a local clay guild or something,
Yeah.
like, would you offer? I feel like you almost have to offer something for free to give people a taste of what you know. Like, maybe you offer to do a free demo or something, and people just happen, like, at the end you bookend it with, hey, by the way, I do classes here.
Yeah. Oh, also, if you're doing a class-based system, going to your local schools is a really great way to do that. And, like, homeschool people, that is huge. Like, if you wanted to get into, like, kids and stuff, if you're doing classes, homeschool systems, they're always looking for things to do. And so if you can find a homeschool group and be like, hey, I offer these classes, then they'll probably jump on that. Or going to your local high school and asking if you can do a demo and then telling the kids that you do classes is really good. I'm trying to figure out where I advertise a lot of my classes. It was mostly online. I feel very lucky that
I feel like you could subtly do it. Like, there's a local plant shop near me that does a live at 5 on Thursdays, I think, or they used to, and they would do like plant sales.
Oh, nice.
But I feel like you could kind of take that and build consistency. Do she did it on Facebook, so do like a Facebook Live at a certain time, and maybe you're just doing a wheel demonstration for 30 minutes.
Yeah, totally.
You do it a consistent day, consistent time of the week, and then you always have a subtle, like, here's when my classes are next, or signing up for classes now, and you get those regular people to come back, and then maybe there's some incentive for them to share. Maybe if they share and they sign up for a class, they get a $10 off or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, also, something that seems really stupid and simple that Ron would always say is door closed, store closed, door open, store open. So keep your door open. Keep the door open. Like, open up the fucking door. If it's snowing,
Literally.
open the door.
Not unlock, open the door.
Open the door. Like, all the way open, so people don't have to open the door, they just walk through the door. Open the door. If you're on a main street that people walk down, open it. That's huge. That's huge.
I thought of that.
It's not something that I ever thought of before Ron said it. He's like, door closed, door closed. And I was like, oh, jeez.
I mean, that could be as simple as, like, they grab the door, they try to pull it. It's a push door, and they're like, well, must be closed.
Must be closed.
You're like,
Yeah.
They're like, no, you just didn't push the door, or it sticks.
Yeah, he was like, we do it every single day of the year. If it's snowing outside, the door's still open. Just turn the heater on. Like, yeah, it's big. It's actually, it works quite well. I never had it open because of the cat. Sometimes I would just leave that, With Tidbit, it was no problem at all. I could leave it open all day. She would never go anywhere, but not Lloyd.
Yeah.
Not Floyd either. Yeah.
I had another question.
Okay, what's up?
That may cater to some people. So let's say they're in your situation a few years ago. They have a space in their home,
Okay.
but they need more space. So they're basically getting the space. You could call it a brick and mortar because they are public. They are, like, they can do retail. But they really are getting it for the more additional room for doing their own stuff. But they happen to have retail, like a gallery. How do they approach that? Are they... I guess like a working studio with gallery add-on. Like, how do they approach that? Is it basically, hey, I'm just trying to get more efficient so that I have more space and room to fulfill my orders and have my business grow so that I could pay off the rent kind of thing. Like, if that's the main concern versus I need to sell retail so that I can, like, grow a community. It's more like I need more space personally.
Right, I need more space personally. What I would recommend is if you need more space personally and you don't like people and you don't want people to interrupt your shit, don't open a store.
Is that still considered... That's just a remote studio then?
Yeah, just build a fucking studio and pay it off. Like, buy a shed for $2,000 and build it out. It's going to be cheaper in the long run and you'll be much happier.
Is that because you're not paying rent to somebody that owns a space and you don't have any ownership over that space? Like, they could sell it and you have to find a different place? Or
Yeah, no, it's because, well, you have to be kind of crazy to own a store, first off. I feel like you kind of have to have that, like, crazy retail bug, because everybody knows, if you've ever worked in retail, that customers are fucking nuts. So keep that in mind. But, like, if your whole purpose of owning a store is because you need more space, you just need more space. You don't need to own a store. You just need more space. Now, if your
what if they have that itch to have a retail?
Then if they have the itch to...
But they need more space.
Okay, well, here's the thing. It's kind of like a catch-22, because if you have retail and you need more space, your time is sucked away too. You might have more space, but that doesn't mean you have more time. You have to cater to that.
That's what I'm trying to get to.
Okay. I kind of missed the beginning of your question because you cut out, so I was...
No, I know, I figured. You were kind of blank there. So,
yeah.
Like, somebody that comes to mind is like Amanda at Doghouse Pottery. Like, she needed the additional space.
Yeah.
But she also has the retail in the front. I'm not sure if Rachel from Hillbippy, I think she still produces a lot in her home too, but she could have a working studio as well as retail.
I think at one point, if I remember correctly, she tried to have a studio in her retail space, and then she moved it back home because she realized that there was not much time to be done.
There wasn't time separation.
Yeah.
Hey, I need me time to work, and I need you time to shop.
If you want to make your retail space good, you need to devote your time to that retail space. If you want to create really good pieces and make really great pieces, but you need more space, you need something that's closed to the public so that you can create those pieces with that time that that you need. You know, you don't, especially if you have a business online, you don't necessarily need a space. Like, for instance, Sean and Valeri, they have a retail space, but they're in a tourist town, and they have their studio space in a completely separate location. So I'm sure they have employees that man that space, but that was specifically to sell their wares in Orcas Island, and like that was specific. That wasn't.
And it probably cuts down on the number of interactions they would have, people coming to the studio. Like,
right.
Yes, I could sell my stuff, but you would have to come to my studio and take time away from my time working.
Correct. So that made total
order.
sense, right? And at that point, they have that gallery space to store all of their finished work that's not selling, which is a great plus, right? And they can just pull from that gallery space if they need something to sell online. That's really nice. But yeah, I would say if you need more space, then you need more space. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need a retail space. And retail is hard and it sucks a lot of the time. Yes, it is very rewarding if you have a class-based system, but just because he's saying this because this is exactly why I started a retail space, because I needed more space. And I was like, it's fine. I'll just have a 3,000 square foot retail space, and I'll do all my production and all the things. And then by the end of it, I was so burned out, and I hated life, and I hated people, and it was terrible.
But I'm sure it's a big thing that people move into a space like that because they need more space and they want to produce. They want to have a working studio that also sells their work.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I've never had retail, because I've always had a working studio and I've never had enough room for the retail.
Yeah.
So they're like, I can have both as long as you could balance both. But the timing is kind of what I was getting at of like, hey, it's going to take time away because you need to focus on all the niceties to make it look good, as well as just like doing retail shit.
Yeah, I can count. There's one person that I know that has a retail space plus a production space that is like ultra efficient. There's one person that I know that's made it successful. Everybody else that I know that has a retail type situation that they moved into a larger space because they needed more space and they decided that they were going to sell pieces on top of that have moved their space back to their house. This is after a while. Like, there's still a lot of people still in the exploration stage of this that I know. But, and I'm not going to name any names, but most of the people that I know that got a retail space because they needed more space ended up moving their kilns back to their house and firing it home and making it home and then going in to the retail space and maybe glazing there or like doing very small tasks that they could do while they were there.
And they can't get distracted and
exactly.
they can bounce back and forth quickly.
Right. So I would pose caution when you think in those terms. I'm not saying that it's not doable. I think it's very doable, but I really think it's important to know why you're getting into something in the first place, what the base reason is, and also think about your people skills and how much you like people. And well, it's really important. You laugh, but it's really important to like know that about yourself.
I get it. Like, if you're drained from people, you can't be as efficient with your work and like have good quality work if you're getting distracted every 20 minutes.
Yeah, because you will get distracted every 20 minutes. And
if it's already hard for you to focus, like, you need that time by yourself with a TV on and a movie in the background that's just background noise versus I'm going to have a customer that could walk in any minute. That's way different than a movie that's just playing on in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially with things that are time sensitive, you can't do those things because if somebody walks in and takes up 30 minutes of your time and you have a wet slab of clay in the back that you just have to leave right there, that's, that can't happen. You have to have some sort of a system, like something that you can be doing. Like, I would glaze a lot when the store was open because I can drop that at any time. But, yeah.
Right. And you can't like load a kiln because the kiln's in the very back, or maybe you could, and then you like walk from the back and you're like, let me know if you have any questions, and then you're like, do you have to linger around the front because if they have questions you can't like be all the way in the back.
Right. Yeah, a couple years ago, Rebecca and I were looking at a space for her that was much larger than the space she's in now. And she had a plan of having like retail and classes and stuff like that. And she eventually ended up choosing not to do that. And I think like a couple weeks ago, she was like, God, I'm so glad I chose not to do that. Just because what she needed was more space. She didn't need all those extra things,
Because it's like you've got the space, you've got to use it.
Yeah.
And it's like, what can I do to use it?
Right.
Because then you're working with way more personalities because you got customers, you got member personalities, you've got employee personalities, you've got your own personality of like what you can handle.
Yeah.
I think the just factor of the extra people is like it's like an unknown that's hard to measure, but it has a big impact.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the time thing. I can foresee the time thing. I can foresee stuff like that. Like when Rachel talks about like moving or something like that. I foresee the time commitment and the lost time when you start over of all the work that's gone into this thing, and you're like, you move and it's like, okay, now I got to figure out how to wind my studio down or move my things over efficiently so that I don't stop one day and have no production for 4 months and then start that 4 months down the road and still have like the quality and consistency that I want. You know, something like that is like, I can see the time lost and the unknowns and the money that's going to happen there. And that's the kind of stuff that I think about when situations like this come up where you're like, do I want to open this? It's like, what's going to change? Like, what can I handle? This whole thing about like the people person and like, how do you do at shows? Because if you can interact with customers at a show and you enjoy it, that's a consistent 6 hours. Like, can you do that 3 days a week?
Yeah.
All the time.
And can you handle children running around your space? Regardless of whether it be a paint your own pottery but you have to remember that you're ceramics. You will be in ceramics if you're listening to this podcast. The likelihood of you opening a store that doesn't have something that's breakable is slim. And can you handle a mom coming in with her 4 children and them running around and you being like, please don't touch? Like, you know, honestly, I will say that it kind of was a blast. When it was busy and, you know, when there was a ton of people in there and pre-COVID and like, you know, when kids were like just like going crazy, it was kind of a blast. But yeah, you have to like think about all the things. If
you had to decide between doing only paint your own pottery or only teaching classes, what would you choose?
I'd do paint your own pottery.
Okay. Like the lucrative side of it as well as just the effort that's required on your side.
Oh my God, yeah. And honestly, like, it's so fun to see what little kids paint on mushrooms. And it's just...
I feel like it's so easy. You just don't do a quick, like, little 3-minute description and let them do what they want to do. I'm
a little bit frustrated that because originally I was like, okay, I'm going to have classes and then I'll do like a few paint your own pottery stuff, but it'll only be my stuff, like only be the pieces that I made. And then it like morphed into this huge thing and there was like all paint your own pottery and, God, I was going to have such a good fucking year in 2020 and then fucking COVID. But yeah, it's so easy, especially if you're doing low fire stuff. Glazing it is a piece of cake. You just dip everything in clear and it's like no fuss, no muss. Like I actually don't even know how, like all these people that have paint your own pottery places, like I was part of a bunch of groups and they were like, I don't understand why this is crawling and like what's happening here. I'm like, oh my God, these people like, you know,
because they don't have the ceramics knowledge.
Yeah, a little bit, but I guess
they're kind of like ass backwards into the paint your own pot.
Yeah, and they don't know how to fire their kilns correctly, and you know it's no fault to their own. It's just that it's just a different background. But yeah, it was just so easy and like so satisfying too, and almost instant gratification, and you know, your customers are almost always happy unless their pieces get thrown away and or given away on accident. But
given away? Other people like pick them up?
Yeah. But yeah, it is a lot of fun in that regard. But yes, I would definitely do paint your own pottery instead of classes. It's just...
I just feel like the class schedule of having to be like, all right, I'm at the end of the 6 weeks. But before the 6 weeks is over, you got to be planning like halfway through that 6-week class for the next 6-week class.
Mm-hmm.
And make sure you can, like, it's never stopping.
Yeah, it's always a cycle.
Like at Baker Hunt, when I'm teaching, they're asking for proposals like 2 weeks into an 8-week class for the next session. And I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, totally. And like, I'm not really a planner, so like on my classes, I kind of just take them as they come, and that's why I wasn't a great teacher. I am a good teacher, but I'm not a good long-term teacher. But yeah, you do have to plan a lot in advance, and that was the hard part for me. But you know, um, also I should mention this. If you guys ever want to open a paint your own pottery store, I marked those up 5 times. 5 times.
5 times, and that includes firing and everything.
Yeah, a lot of people, no. $5 painting fee plus the item. But you could paint like 15 things and only have $5. But, so the painting fee.
What's the painting fee for? Is that basically to cover the materials?
Yeah, the glazes and the clay and the firing. Because like little kids will squirt like half the bottle into their palette, and that just covers that. But like, yeah, like, you know, you have these Mighty Tots, and those retail, I think they're like $1.10, 89 cents, something like that. Maybe $1.80. And I'd mark them up almost 5 times. They were $6.50. And I mean,
what are you talking about? Mighty Tots? Is that a bisque piece?
yeah, like a bisque piece that was like $1.80 maybe, or like $1.50 I think, wholesale. And you get them, and then you put them out on the shelf, and they're $6, $6.50. And moms pay so much money for that stuff. And at first I felt really bad for
well, because you're paying for the experience. You're not
Yeah.
paying for the piece. You're paying for the 2.5 hours you have with your child.
right,
while
but
you're
also, you know, they have
spending
those
an
pieces
afternoon.
forever. They put them up on their mantle, and they have them forever.
Right.
Like, how long is your mom going to have those little owls that we painted for your nephew? You know, like, forever. I know you will, Deidre.
Yeah. Or I was thinking the gnome. I don't remember the owls.
Oh, well, Molly painted her a little owl thing and sent it to her. Because we didn't have one that she could paint. But anyway, yeah, like, you know, it's the memories and stuff like that. And it's just it's so much fun. Yes, if I was going to redo any part of the business that I had in Washington, it would be the paint your own pottery part. It's so easy. It's so satisfactory. You can make so much money if you do it right. And it's all smiles all around. All smiles. Most of the time.
I feel like is it partially because the people that you're interacting with are like, they're not in the clay like medium, like they don't know clay that much,
Right.
so they're just doing it for a different experience that's fun.
Yeah. They love to paint, you know? Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
There's I wanted to shout out somebody that is a paint your own pot that's learning clay, and she's been figuring out like making handles, and she's been like, it's somebody that you just talk with them, and we've talked through like video stories back and forth. It's just like when you have that personality that you're just like, oh my gosh, you're like perfect for this, because they're just so excited, and she's unloading kilns and so excited about what these customers are painting and stuff. Okay, so her Instagram is a sketchy art workshop. Her name is Danielle. But yeah, she is great.
A sketchy? Oh, I spelled that.
A sketchy art workshop. She's up in Ontario.
Canada?
Yep.
I'm gonna follow you.
You should just look at some of her videos with her in
Oh
it.
my god, her shelves are so cute! She's got so much stuff. Her shop reminds me of my shop. How fun!
Yeah, it's super cool. And she's got like a pull-up garage door, which would be nice during like the summer. You can imagine people like painting in there with the garage door open. And
How much fun is that?
yeah. So like, have the personality that makes people want to be excited to come there. Like, you can see her unloading your stuff out of the kiln, for instance.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
it's helpful that even though I'm an introvert, that nobody believes I am, but I am. Even though I'm an introvert and I don't generally love people all that much, I am very good with children, and I remember everything. I have like an extremely good memory. So if a child walks in, I'll be like, oh my God, I pulled your mushroom out of the kiln and it looks so good. And they're like, what? They're like so excited. And
I'm like, I don't even remember what I painted.
yeah. And, making those personal connections, like that will bring back people more and more and more and more and more. And remembering the parents' names and stuff like that is super important. And you do end up having this weird community, even if you have a weird little shop, like a retail shop or a weird little paint your own pottery, you have repeat customers. Like Crazy Linda. I love Linda. And you have these people that come back time and time again, and you do create this community. And that's really what it's all about, is like, however you start, and like whenever you start a business and like open a store, there's a lot of things that you have to do. But the main thing that you should be focused on is the community that you're building, because the community is what's going to get you through the tough times. And,
like the tough parts of the year, I'm sure a lot of this business is seasonal.
yeah, it is really seasonal, because you would think that like summer would be a huge time, but it's not as much. Like, depending on where you are, like summer in Washington, everybody's in the mountains. So they're not going to be, painting pottery. But winter is really big, for pottery or painting or whatever. But yeah, you like create this community and you get these people that talk about you. Word of mouth is the best communication that you can have. Oh, another thing about marketing is that, like, I remember there was this lady, somebody who has kids will probably know. I don't know if it's just Pacific Northwest, but there was this lady she had the Macaroni Kids, I think was her like blog, and she would post all these fun things for moms to do. And I was all like, she loved me, and she would always like post my store and stuff.
So was she a customer of yours?
Yeah, she like came with her kids a few times, but she lived in Snohomish, so she would always be like, this is something that you could do this weekend. Like, trying to find somebody local that's like a mom group, like, oh my God, mom groups, like get in with the moms. But
yeah,
that's like if you have paint your own pottery. But still, even if you have retail, like,
or like one-time workshops or something like that.
Yeah, like workshops and stuff like that. It's so much fun. Yeah, I don't know. There's so much you can do. Even if you have classes, like, you can still do fun little, like, Christmas cookie cutter workshops and stuff like that. And Larry would always say, kids bring the most money. If you can get something with children, you're going to make a little bit more money, because kids are the givers of money.
And they don't come by themselves.
Themselves, and usually their parents come expecting to pay money. So, yeah, but yeah, I don't really know what this whole episode was about, but it kind of like morphed into this weird weird thing. I feel like
hey, it was ins and out of running brick and mortar, and like I think we talked about that.
Yeah,
because when I think of brick and mortar, it could be a number of things. Like, I just think of a space that you're basically not in your home studio. Like, you are open to the public is kind of what
I mean, technically your booth is a brick and mortar, if you really think about it. Like,
yeah, it's a temporary brick and mortar.
Yeah. Also, if you do create like a gallery space, consider consigning, consider having other potters in your space and selling other people's stuff, because that brings more people too. Because then, those people that are in there will always be like, oh, I sell here, and so that's also a good way to get people coming in.
Yeah. There's actually a potter that's in the Clay Alliance. Shout out OG Gallery. She is probably 2/3 gallery, but she makes pottery, but for a hobby.
Yeah.
But the full-time business is the gallery, and then the backside of it is a paint your own pot.
Oh, nice.
And then she has a back area where she fires everything, but she has like a wheel on the side that she throws on occasionally.
Yeah. And
then she lives above it. So she basically owns the building. And she has the retail and the paint your own pot and all that stuff. So like, that's a way you could do it too. Like, you don't have to be I mean, sure, most of the people that are listening are probably potters and they're making their own work, but if you like the medium and you want to support other people, maybe you go the consignment route and you just have a bunch of different mediums that you consign. And she has more than just clay, so she has clay and like other art forms that she sells to the public, and then she has paint your own pot that's super like profitable, you know.
I always thought it'd be really fun to have like a paint your own pottery store, but instead of doing like the China stuff, it would be really cool to like consign from local potters. Like if you were in like a dense pottery like community, you know, like Washington was not like that. You couldn't find potters.
So you like buy bisqueware at wholesale?
Yeah. Like I would buy bisque from you, so like your shape of mugs, and then I would buy bisque from like Rachel, and I would buy bisque from Rebecca, and I would buy bisque from, you know, Josh, and like different mugs, and like have the artist sign the bottoms still, and then it would be cool. I mean, like I think that would be cool to like bring in local handmade pottery that other people can paint, you know.
Plus, that would be a pretty sweet wholesale. Imagine if you had a wholesale order that all you had to do was make the bisqueware.
Right. It's a win-win, really. So, but yeah, I always thought that would be really cool because then people can be painting, like, obviously you have to be confident in your, the problem with that is that you have to be confident in your makers that they're not going to be having S cracks and like all these things. So firing,
as well as, are they using clay that fires
exactly.
to cone
So
5?
like there's a lot of logistical.
Can customers paint on this clay?
Yeah, there's a lot of logistical issues, but it would still be really cool to have something that's like completely handmade and made in the city that or state that you're in. I've always thought that would be really cool because, I mean, the majority of
or maybe that's a fun project for them. Maybe they only produce white stoneware, bisqueware for you.
Yeah.
And that's like a fun project for them on the side because all they got to do is make the bisqueware. They don't have to worry about what their glazes are going to look like on it because you're going to use your underglazes or makos or whatever.
Yeah. It's funny because, like, you know, kids, they love, like, the little mushrooms. I keep saying mushrooms, but I just really like the mushrooms. And, like, gnomes and owls and all the animals and stuff. But the majority of women and men that come in that are above a certain age really like to paint something functional. That's usually where they kind of lean towards. And so I think that was a great idea at the beginning when I had that was like, I'm just going to have functional pieces. And then it kind of just like morphed into like throw up of.
Yeah, I'm sure
China,
there's a market for it. It sounds like that would be a test thing that you would have to try. Mm-hmm. Like having the cheaper stuff that has a higher profit margin, and then you have the stuff that has more logistical issues with the whole clay bodies and figuring people. Maybe you just try it for like an artist.
Yeah.
And say, this month we're featuring this
artist.
Yeah, like
a featured artist. Yeah. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. I really I really liked that part of the business. That was my favorite part. It's really fun to paint.
Well, you like to paint yourself. Like, I'm not a painter, so like I see a bisque piece and I'm like, okay, we're going to paint your own pot. We're going to paint this. I am like, I have no idea what I'm going to put on here. Like,
yeah, I've had like, when I would do, pre-COVID, we would do paint nights, and I can accommodate like 20 to 30 people in the studio at a time. And so, like, we had a fall-themed paint night where it was all pumpkins and gnomes and
that's sweet.
Sasquatches, or not Sasquatches, cornucopias.
Like pay $25 at the door or something.
Yeah, it was like it wasn't even that. It was like $5 ticket that they pay in advance, and that's the studio fee. And then they pick out whatever they want, and then they pay, you know, how much at the end. And then you had like hot apple cider, and you know, those were actually that was some of the funnest nights that I've had.
That's like an old time paint and sip. Like,
yeah,
those businesses were killing it. I don't know if they're still killing it, but but it's
better than a paint and sip because then you don't have to teach anything. You just sit there and watch them paint and shit. Or like,
you just do a quick 5-minute. Yeah.
The first one I had was so hectic because I really hadn't figured out my color system. And there was like 30 people. I always start big and then I'm like, okay.
Then you scale down to like offering, like you wish you would have offered like 5 colors to eat everybody instead of like 25 colors to everybody to pick from.
I've been through a lot of
what you mean?
different color situations. And what I've ended up with, and what I essentially started with, is that I offer all of the colors.
Because you have people inevitably that are going to ask you for this color.
Yeah, but also because I want all the colors.
Well, plus, I didn't know this, but you buy those colors at wholesale price.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not buying the bottles of stroking coats at retail.
Right. I think a retail bottle of Stroke & Co. is... let's say I think it's a 16-ounce bottle is like $18.
Yeah, you're not paying that.
No, you're paying $9.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And the second train passes. Does that mean that we're wrapping up here?
That means we're wrapping up pretty close. I feel like we've got a new normal that's 2 hours, and I don't know how everybody else feels about.
Hey, Rachel's ringing the bell. That means we're done.
Oh my god! Why is she ringing a bell?
Probably because she wants me to unlock the door.
You locked your wife out?
I left earlier. I lock the door when I leave the house, yes.
Does she not have keys?
And she does. She just doesn't want to dig for them, I guess.
That's hilarious.
All right, so you said new normal, 2 hours. We're hitting 2 hours. How do people feel about it?
Yeah, write it in your review that you're getting a sticker for.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, this was a weird, if you're going to not really make a brick and mortar, but also make a brick and mortar, but also make a paint your own pottery, but also make a studio of classes.
It's a lot of considerations to weigh out here.
But at the end of the day, don't do it if you don't want to. If you need more space.
Don't be enticed by, like, it's only $400 a month. It's like...
It's fine. You know what? You can find a studio for $400 a month and make a lot more money doing it that way. And that's what we'll end with.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Thanks.
And we will catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, guys. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We really appreciate it, and we're having so much fun. If you want to follow us individually on Instagram, you totally can. Ryan's Instagram handle is @RDCeramics, and mine is 5 Lines Pottery. That's the number 5. We would love to hear from you, and don't forget to write us a review on our podcast. We read every single one of them, and we totally appreciate them. They help us out an awful lot, and they also put smiles on our faces. I hope you guys continue to listen, and we love you. Thanks. Bye.